Let me ask you a question on the competition side. We mentioned haters, and do you think about this aspect of the competition with the athletes?
It's a great question, and the answer is no. You can see that you couldn't find two more polar opposites psychologically than George St-Pierre and this monstrosity on my left. And I've never said to my athletes, "Hey, I think this is the sort of demeanor you should carry yourself with." I'm myself a very flawed character, and I'm the last person on earth who should be delving out moral advice to other people. The only thing is that I of course I believe some things are off limits, but as long as it's done in the context of sport where no one's physically attacking people or doing anything crazy where it just goes completely over the top, then I give almost zero moral advice to my athletes. I'm a jiu-jitsu coach, not a preacher.
Lex, if I may, we are entertainers. We're athletes, we're professional athletes, but we make a living because of people want to see us perform. Same thing an actor, same thing a singer. And a lot of the time, especially in the fight game, an event is promoted. It needs to be with emotion. Love me, hate me, but do not ignore me. And when it's authentic and it's done well, I think personally, my favorite fighters to watch are the ones that have some sort of a bad persona. I really enjoyed watching those guys because they bring an emotion element into a fight, which is great. I feel, to me, it's more interesting to watch when there is an emotion involved. And I believe that's why some fighters make more money than others. You know what I mean? That's the reason why we can make a living out of this.
Yeah, they're better entertainers, but you're right. The authenticity seems to be really important there.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually something very interesting there. It's time to break out some secrets. Do you know who, like you think of George St-Pierre, you think of like the highly technical, polished martial artist.
Oh, this is going to be great.
Do you know who his favorite fighters to watch were? You'd probably be thinking, probably someone who's really technically advanced. Actually, it was Mark Coleman, Kevin Randleman, and Phil Baroni. He used to love watching that. That was a Hammer House. That was his favorite. He would love those guys. And whenever their fights were on, George would be watching the Hammer House crew. And it's funny what you said about how those guys brought an intensity to MMA that was off the charts. Have you ever met those guys in their prime? Let me tell you, it was something to behold. And they had this crazy, larger than life personality. Most of the things they did made no sense whatsoever. But
I mean, technically,
but that was their appeal.
Yeah.
And there were these guys, and George loved to watch them more than anyone else.
You never knew what could happen with these guys. I remember when Mark Coleman won the Pride Grand Prix. I was in my living room. I was jumping. I was so happy. I was like, yeah! He beat Igor Vorchevchin. I was like, to me, it was amazing. You know what I mean? Because of the emotion that they brought into the fight.
George, I was actually very interested by something you said there. Normally, when I ask what is the appeal of a given fighter and what makes people watch a fight, you talked about the idea that fighters are entertainers, and that's absolutely correct. They are. It's this weird industry where you're both an athlete and an entertainer, and you need to be successful in both regards to become financially successful. Insofar as your favorite athletes to watch, at least, were people who are almost like the polar opposite of who you are. I've always said that most people, if you look at, say, 1 million people watch a pay-per-view event, what percentage of those 1 million people have a genuine technical understanding of what's happening as they watch a fight? It's tiny. It's absolutely tiny. The vast majority of people who watch a professional fight have almost no technical understanding of what's going on in front of them. So how do they relate to the fight? What's the only way they can? It's through emotion. And so when they get a sense that these two don't like each other, then they can relate to the fight. But only a tiny percentage of people watching a given professional fight can relate to it on a technical level. The overwhelming majority will always form an emotional attachment to the fight. That's why when you see shows like UFC Primetime, they never focus on the tactics and the techniques of the fight. They focus on the emotional elements, the preparation, the view of their own family members as athletes get ready. It's always an emotional pull, because that's how 99% of the viewers relate to the fight. Think about chess, okay? If I have minimal knowledge of two world champions coming to fight each other or match up against each other in a game of chess, I know so little about chess tactics, and I can't really form any kind of technical appreciation of what's going on the board. But if you tell me that these two chess players hate each other's guts and they've got a rivalry which goes back 5 years and they've said this and that about each other in public, then suddenly my ears prick up and I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. Because I just don't have the knowledge to appreciate what's going on the board in a chess game to be able to appreciate the technical nuances of what they're doing. So any interest that I have in the chess match is going to have to come from some kind of emotional level, because I'm just not qualified to make technical assessments. And that's exactly how it is in the case of both grappling and mixed martial arts. That's why the ones who evoke the most attention are always the ones who can form some kind of emotional appeal. Conor McGregor was the all-time master of this.
I believe also emotion can be used as a weapon. For example, I've learned this from my favorite boxer is Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, I remember, I was very young, so I watched his fight later when I was older, but I know that Sugar Ray Leonard was the best boxer of his era, to me personally. And I don't think nobody could beat him. I think it was skill-wise, it was the best. However, when he fought in Montreal, Roberto Duran made it in a way that Leonard became very emotional. He wanted to stand in front of Duran and fight a different fight that he normally does, because he wanted to show that he's a man. And he lost that fight, which was a mistake. So by then later on, he beat Roberto Duran quite easy. You know, everybody remember the no mask thing. But my point is, emotion can be used in a way that it can make derail your opponent out of his game plan. And I felt a lot of my opponent trying to do that with me. So that's why I never got involved. That was my way to defend myself against some kind of bullying, to put like a shield in front. But some other guy like Gordon, he expressed himself differently. Of course, there's a language barrier, but for him, he's better at giving back. He's a better counterattacker. You know, that's the way he responds to the aggression of an emotional attack. I think everybody is different in that regard.
What's interesting that John said that he doesn't study the tactics of this game, or maybe you're not interested in the tactics of this game, because it seems like this is more than just being an entertainer. It seems like it could be an effective part of the match.
Yeah, I just feel like whatever investment you make in that it's going to get negligible rewards. First of all, it's probably only going to pertain to one match in front of you rather than the totality of your career. And whatever gains you get out of psychological trickery and play typically don't last long. You raised an excellent example with Sugar Ray Leonard. He did fight outside of his usual manner in that regard. But rather than me try to tell someone, hey, behave like this before a fight, I would have been probably more forceful between rounds with an athlete and say, no, you're fighting this fight the wrong way. And that would have a much more beneficial impact on my athlete than psychological trickery before a fight.
I believe another example of emotion that leads to failure is Jose Aldo against Conor McGregor. I think it was it was on purpose that Conor McGregor did this, try to bait Aldo to become over-aggressive, to open himself, because he's an excellent puncher. That's what I believe. He made a mistake.
There's another great one. My match against Cyborg, 2018 No-Gi Worlds, where he didn't even try to win. He just like wanted to smack me in the face the whole time because he was so angry. And I was talking shit to him before the match. And it was like the finals of the Absolute. It was like the biggest match of the weekend. And he just didn't even try to pass my guard or do anything. He just wanted to hit me in the face. And I was like, sick, I just won.
He was incredibly frustrated.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to watch, like a grown man sort of lose composure. It's very interesting.
Gordon, one thing I've always been very impressed with you, and that's no matter how heated talk gets before a match with you, when you go out to grapple, you're absolutely cold. Like you've never gone into a match carrying anything other than just cold-blooded calculation, and you've always been able to separate very well the idea of words and deeds, and I think that's always been one of your strongest assets. A way I often measure this is when a match is over, I will ask the athlete questions about the match, and if they can't answer the question, what were you doing in the 4th minute? Okay, what was that setup you used in the 3rd minute that got you into the Kimura lock? If they can't answer that, that tells me they were just fighting on instincts and emotion. But with Gordon, it's like a logbook. It's like, okay, in the 7th minute, you went for that Jujigatami setup from on the left side. What were you thinking? He can always give an answer. He's absolutely stone cold.